Hey guys, this is Elena Seungeun Lee from We Learn to Share. Welcome to the video of AP Environmental Science. In this video, we're going to go over resources and pollution. Okay, so we have first the term ecology. And ecology is a key subfield of the environmental science, the field itself, and it is basically a study of a biological science that studies how organisms, which are living things, interact with their environments and with each other. However, you have there are distinct characteristics between environmental science and ecology and between environmentalism, because environmentalism is basically a social movement dedicated to protecting the Earth's life supporting system for us. So it's like a political movement, social movement, not necessarily a field of studying of biology or ecology like environmental science or ecology is. And then we have resource, and we have two types of resources. First would be renewable resource, which are basically natural resources like air, water, soil, plants, and wind. And we also have the second type, which is non-renewable resource, which are not renewable, which are not natural resources, but mostly like you get the sense of like copper, oil, or coal. And the non-renewable resources exist in a fixed quantity or stock in the Earth's crust. That's why we have to protect it and not to use excessively. And they also include energy resources such as coal and oil. There are metallic mineral resources like copper and aluminum, and also non-metallic mineral resources which are salt and sand. All of these examples are non-renewable resources you want to know for your studying of environmental science. So these are more examples: renewable energy like solar, biomass, wind, geothermal, hydropower. These are all renewable energy. And then you have non-renewable energy: oil, coal, nuclear, natural gas. Okay, so these are basically the sources where you derive your energy. And then there's a thing called ecological footprint. And it means basically the amount of biologically productive land and water needed to supply the people in a particular country or area with resources and to absorb and recycle the waste and pollution produced by such resource use. And if the total ecological footprint is bigger or larger than the biological capacity to replenish its renewable resources and absorb the resulting waste products and pollution, then it results in ecological deficit. Okay, let's repeat that again. An ecological deficit means that, or it happens when the total ecological footprint is larger or bigger than the biological capacity to replenish its renewable resources and absorb the resulting waste, produces, and pollution. So basically means that these pollutions could not be handled, the natural resources could not be replenished or renewed. And per capita ecological footprint means average ecological footprint of an individual in a given country or area. You might be familiar with the term like GDP or a per capita GDP. So all these can mean kind of in the same line, right? So per capita ecological footprint is basically per capita, right? An average ecological footprint of an individual in a given country or area. And it gives us an estimate of how much of the Earth's renewable resources an individual consumes. And there's a source that shows that a largest per capita ecological footprint was first the United Arab Emirates, which are the oil countries, and then the second was the US. And then we have several things we need to remember more because there are cultural changes that have increased or contributed to the incline of our ecological footprint. There are three major events in human history. First is the agricultural revolution. So it began 10,000 and 12,000 years ago when humans learned how to grow and breed plants and animals for food, clothing, and other purposes. So when they started to farm things and to kill animals for food, clothing, and other purposes, basically that have increased our ecological footprint. And the second major events in human history would be industrial medical revolution, which began over 275 years ago when people invented machines for the large-scale production of goods in factories. And this is very clear how it had increased ecological footprint because we're using more of these resources from the nature to produce our own stuff, which would basically involve or cause pollution in the air and stuff, right? And the third major event would be information and globalization revolution, which began about very recent, 50 years ago, when we developed new technologies for gaining rapid access to much more information and resources on a global scale. And we have basically done that by the advent of the internet, right? And you know that internet and the sending mails and these stuff are contributing to the CO2 emissions and stuff. So you can basically remember the three culture changes: first, the agricultural revolution; second, the industrial medical revolution; the third, the information global revolution. They all have increased and contributed to the incline of our ecological footprint in human history. And then these would basically be one of the last slides because this kind of shows you the sources of pollution. So we have two sources of pollution. The first one is a point source of pollution, and the point source of pollution is basically down to the points. You can identify the source of pollution. So there are single identifiable sources. And examples of this would be like the smokestack of a coal burning power or industrial plant, the drain pipe of a factory, and the exhaust pipe of an automobile. However, another source of pollution, which are basically kind of the opposite of the point source of pollution, is non-point source of pollution. So they are not identifiable or hard to identify because they're dispersed and often difficult to identify. And examples would be pesticides blown from the land into the air and the runoff for fertilizers and pesticides from farmlands, lawns, gardens, and golf courses into streams and lakes. And you can clearly see how these two examples differ, right? Because in the case of an industrial plant, you can basically see the black smoke really like being emitted from the plant, from the factory right away. So that's very identifiable, which hence makes it as a point source of pollution. However, in the case of non-point source of pollution, when the pesticides are blown and then it's kind of degrades into the soil and then it basically leaks out and then it goes to the gardens, into streams and lakes and stuff, you can't kind of see it by your eyes, really. You can't identify it really clearly, relatively compared to the point source of pollution. So that's why I can say that it is a non-point source of pollution. And because of these characteristics of non-point source of pollution, they're much easier and cheaper to identify. Not the non-point source of pollution, sorry. It's much easier and cheaper to identify and control or prevent pollution from the point sources of pollution, which you can clearly identify the sources, than from widely dispersed non-point sources of pollution, which are very dispersed and often difficult to identify. That's kind of, you can draw a causation or draw this generalization sentence from these two characteristics of each source of pollution, right? And these are the references. Okay, and thank you for listening, and I hope this video had helped you understand a little bit of AP Environmental Science. And thank you for watching this video, and see you in the next video.